Alright, so today we're going to be learning about rearranging x. I already shot a video about the basics about rearranging x. Today we're going to learn about the advanced version. So we're going to do 8 problems. These are the most common 8 problems that I see that students don't understand how to rearrange x. So let's start with this one. So like my other video, we had these 4 right here, and these are always opposites, okay? So to rearrange x, there's only 2 steps. Get all the x's to one side, and get the numbers to the other side. So with this, I always like to make my x's positive, so I'm going to do plus 5x right here, plus 5x right there. So I know this goes away, and then I have to get the numbers to the other side, so minus 8, minus 8. So now I'm left with 8x equals, this crosses out, equals negative 28. And then what's happening between these two variables? Well, if there's nothing in between them, we have to assume it's multiplication. So the opposite of multiplication is division. So divide by 8, divide by 8, and your answer is just going to be negative 28 over 8. So with this one right here, I'm going to show you 2 different ways to do this. So this parentheses right here confuses a lot of students. So the first way I'm going to do it is I'm going to think, what's happening between these 2 variables? Well, if there's nothing in between them, we know that they're multiplying. So the opposite of multiplication is division. Divide by 3, divide by 3. So now it's 4x plus 7 equals 6. From here, I'm going to subtract by 7, subtract by 7. So that's negative 1. And then it's 4x. And then we're going to divide by 4 since the 4 and the x are multiplying. And so we now get our answer as x equals negative 1 over 4. The other way that it can be done is I'm just going to go ahead and rewrite it. Is something called distributing. So we could distribute it here and then also right there. So when we distribute it, it's going to be 12x plus 7 times 3 is 21 equals 18. From here, we're going to subtract the 21, which is negative 3, equals 12x. And then we're going to divide by 12, divide by 12, x equals negative 3 over 12. And when we simplify it, we can divide both of them by 3, so it's negative 1 over 4. And as you can see, we both got the same answer. 2 different ways to do it, but at the end, we still get the same answer. With this one, a lot of students get confused here. This is a very common problem to rearrange. It could be doing with science, with chemistry formulas, algebra formulas. Students get stuck a lot right here. And this is how I approach it. Anytime I see a fraction, I want to create a fraction on the opposite side. So I'm going to put it as 20 over 1 because 20 divided by 1 is the same thing as 20. Anytime you see 2 fractions and an equal sign, I always think of cross multiplying. And when we cross multiply, the key is that we always go from bottom to top, bottom to top. So what it looks like is I'm going to put an equal sign. So I go from this x to this 20, so it's 20x equals 10. Okay. From here, I'm going to, what's happening between these 2 variables, they're multiplying. So I'm going to divide by 20. Divide by 20. So x equals 10 over 20. And there's a zero trick. So the zero tricks is that I can cross them out like this. So now x equals 1/2. All right, so with this one, it's the same idea. I see a fraction. So if I see a fraction on one side, I also want to make the other side a fraction. So I'm going to divide by 1. And the same thing as before, anytime I see 2 fractions, I cross multiply, bottom to top. So that's 80. Bottom to top, that's 4x. From here, I'm going to divide by 4, divide by 4. x equals 20. Okay, so when I look at this one, it's a similar idea. It just looks longer, but same idea. Anytime I see a fraction, I'm going to divide by 1 on the other side. So I always go from bottom to top, put the equal sign. This is the part that's tricky. A lot of students know to multiply this and then this, but they forget to distribute it to also this one over here. So what it becomes is negative 12x plus 24. And then obviously this 1 goes here and then here, but anything times 1 is the same thing. So I'm going to rewrite it as negative 4x plus 5. And then from here, we're going to get all the numbers to one side and all the x's to the next. So I always want to get my x's to be positive. So I'm going to move this one over here, 12x. This cancels out, plus 12x. Then I have to move the numbers to the opposite side, so minus 5, minus 5. So now it's 8x equals to 19, divide by 8, divide by 8. So x now equals 19 over 8. Okay, so with this one, we have to think about, hey, what's the opposite of a square root? Well, I circled it. So the opposite of a square root is squared. So first we want all the numbers on one side and x on the other. So I'm going to do plus 20, plus 20. So that equals 35, square root of x. And then to get x by itself, what I can do is I can square it. So the square root and the square, they end up canceling out. And whatever we do on the left side, we do on the right. So then now the answer is x equals 35 times 35. Let's do some math right here. 3 times 3 is 9, 10. So then the answer is 1,225. Okay, so with this problem, it's the same idea, right? So if I see square root, I know the opposite is squared. So from here, what do I do first? Well, the first thing I want to do is I want to add 15 first. When I add the 15, it becomes 55 equals 5 square root of 3x. From here, I think about what's happening between these two variables. Well, there's nothing in between them, so I have to assume it's multiplication. So the opposite of multiplication is going to be division. So divide by 5, divide by 5. And 55 divided by 5 is 11, square root of 3x. From here, I want to figure out what's the opposite of square root, which is squared. Square root and squared, they cancel out. Whatever I do on the left, gotta do on my right. 11 times 11 is 121, and it's 3x. So then from here, I divide by 3, divide by 3. X essentially equals 121 over 3. And then that'll be your answer. Alright, so with this one, similar idea. So I want all the x's on one side, all the numbers on the next. So I want the x's to always be positive, so I'm going to subtract it from over here. And the like terms, they combine. Then I'm going to move this 40 over here. So now this cancels. So it'll be 2x squared equals 40. So from right here, what's happening between these two things? They're multiplying, so I do the opposite, divide, divide, x squared equals 20. And so I think, hey, what's the opposite of squared? Well, it's the square root. So I'm going to square root on the left side, got a square root on the right. So the square root and the squared, they cancel out. So x equals square root of 20.